Hi everyone, it's Raina. So this video is for the full moon in Scorpio, and this full moon is happening on April 29th. And in my time zone, which is Central Standard Time, it's going to be occurring at 7:58 p.m. And I would say, I think it's fair to say that the full moon in Scorpio may be the most intense full moon of all. And so, because think of what a full moon represents. A full moon is a time of purging. It's a time of secrets. Well, you can say that about Scorpio as a sign. And so because full moons are emotional, we're also talking about things coming to a head and things that a person may have kind of shoved deep within themselves, just coming to the surface and needing to be released, needing to be purged. And we're talking about sexuality with this sun-moon opposition. Taurus, enough said about Taurus and their attitude towards sex. But Scorpio is one of those signs. I mean, it rules the 8th house. In part, the 8th house is about intimacy, including sexual intimacy. So these issues are coming to the forefront for some couples because with Taurus, the attitude is almost like the partner is one of their possessions. The second house that Taurus rules deals with earned income, but also possessions. And what do we say about Taurians? We say they are possessive of, and possessive means usually, I think it refers to people. I guess you can be possessive of your car, but in general, we'll talk about it in relationship to how they view the people in their life. And that kind of an attitude can be quite toxic because people are not possessions, they're not things. And we don't own other people. And it's interesting too because this is a very flirtatious time. Venus is in Gemini. So Venus is highlighting this part of the human being. And by the way, I say human being, I don't say human. I've been noticing a lot these days, especially among millennials, the usage of humans instead of human beings. I don't get that. Humans sounds like, aliens to me. But human beings, because we are beings. We're not just things, we're beings. And it's the nature of human beings to want freedom in their life, okay? And yet, it's also the nature of human beings to want to grasp onto something because they're afraid of losing it. So this is where the Taurus and the Gemini energies clash big time. Then we have that pesky moon in Scorpio, which is all about purging, which is all about release, which is all about, and release of secrets that may have built up. You think about the sign of Scorpio and people that you know who are Scorpios, and 9 times out of 10, they will be quite secretive. I say there's always that outlier, and it's probably a Scorpio who has a lot of Sagittarius in them because Sagittarius tends to be an open book to a large extent. And so, or maybe even Libra energy, where they are just kind of almost innocent in being very open and not as suspicious and tight-lipped as a typical Scorpio person. But there comes a time when you have to purify yourself. And the eighth house is all about dealing with those things that are festering beneath the surface of life. Going back to the sign of Libra that I just mentioned, Libra is very much about a veneer that is very agreeable, polished, and things like that. And yet, Scorpio believes that everyone has a past. Everyone has some dirty little secrets that they don't want anyone else to know. And they are intent about finding them out in others. So Scorpio is the natural detective and psychologist. And so you're seeing that polarity playing out with the sun right now in Taurus opposing that moon in Scorpio. Taurus being an earth sign, dealing with the second house of one's possessions. But it's like me, my stuff, like a toddler, okay? And the eighth house is our possessions. What do we share? We're a couple, so why are you holding on to your possessions and you're not sharing? What is it that we have as joint resources? And, it's kind of interesting how when people get divorced, or let's say you're living together and you're separating your assets, and it could just be as simple as a record collection or a DVD collection. It might not be all that extensive, but it's weird how two people who were supposedly in love can turn into 2-year-olds when they're fighting over inanimate objects. The War of the Roses, I think that was the name of it. That was a black comedy with Michael Douglas. I think it was Michael Douglas and what is her name? I can't think of her name, but she was in Romancing the Stone. You know who I'm talking about. Catherine something or other. But anyway, how they devolved into these, 2-year-olds, and they were vicious to one another. Now, here's a couple who got married who we assume loved each other at one time. What does it mean to be, materialistic? What does that really mean? Does it mean that we are shallow? Well, yeah, it does. It means if somebody's materialistic, they're being shallow and they're neglecting the spirit, okay? Because at some point, and remember too that the eighth house is dealing with also other people's money apart from your partner's money. So you could be talking about, for instance, inheritances. And how do we poison relationships or feel that sense of disappointment in others when it comes to shared resources like wills, estates? How many families have been torn asunder by that kind of infighting? And they may have gotten along pretty well, and then in comes this situation, and they degrade themselves in that particular situation. So you could say that this is a practical full moon in the sense that you are going to be looking at money matters of some sort. But I think it goes beyond that, because the second house, yes, it is your possessions and the money that you earn, but it's also your self-esteem. And when we're talking about self-esteem, the ultimate self-esteem comes from understanding our true nature. It doesn't come from a certain job title or the amount of money you have in the bank, what your socioeconomic class is, and things like that. And so if there are any things that come up for you around the issue of your money or especially with shared resources, be it you and your partner's money, or if it's like a will situation, realize that you have the choice of whether you're going to get down in the mud with other people and degrade yourself and fight for those coins. There are times when it's absolutely essential and appropriate, and it helps the other people learn that they can't be greedy and dishonest. So I'm certainly not saying that there are not times that you need to fight for what you deserve, whether it be in a divorce case or in a probate case. Yeah, every situation is going to be different, but you know when you are being your best self and when you are devolving into this, kind of a shameful, grasping attitude, and, which is fear-based. That's the other thing too. And I think there's no greater area besides our love relationships than money that creates a sense of fear within people. And that is when the reptilian brain kicks in and people are so concerned about their survival needs being met. And they will do the most embarrassing things in order to maintain that sense of security that is really elusive, really an illusion. So that's kind of like what I see going on also in terms of relationships. Do you see somebody as a possession? Do you see somebody as an object for your gratification? And do you trust enough? That's another thing with the full moon actually being in Scorpio. When I'm talking about Taurus, it's because the sun is in direct opposition to Scorpio at this time. And that's what a full moon is, sun-moon opposition. But really, the star of the show here is Scorpio. So the scorpionic issues that we always associate with being, sometimes kind of difficult in relationships. The lack of trust, the tendency to keep secrets, which is born out of shame usually, or, and this is an 8th house matter too, the desire for power. And that's something that you may have to face at this time is, what is true power? Is it being able to manipulate others into getting my needs met? Or am I responsible for my own needs getting met, ultimately? And am I using my relationship to try to make that happen when it can never be the case? So this will be very intense. We may see in the outer world that what is happening is that more secrets are being revealed. As I said in my Jupiter going into Scorpio video way back when, that this was a year of that happening, or I was actually, I'm sure I recorded that last year in 2017, but the next 13 months I meant until November of this year, that we're dealing with these revelations coming out in the collective. And it's also showing that something may look really nice on the surface, but it may be diseased underneath, okay? And this can be some of our institutions that we think are so above board. And we can talk about the media, we can talk about politics, we can talk about even some of our social services or governmental, whatever they call them, non-governmental organizations that's supposed to be charities. They're supposed to be helping people. Are they really doing that? If you are somebody who has been red-pilled, you know that things are coming out about some of these organizations that are downright shocking and, horrifying, okay? And so these things may come out more to the general populace because a lot of people are living in la la land, okay? They really are. And the whole purpose of Jupiter and Scorpio is to blow it up, is to blow up the uncovering of secrets so that the masses know. Because there's always going to be people who are more spiritually enlightened, and that's not being arrogant. It's everybody is going to get there, but some people are, at the head of the line, and they're looking around and seeing other people who are asleep and rolling their eyes sometimes, not because they're trying to put them down, but because it's frustrating. And it is frustrating. It's frustrating to deal with people who are, operating with different sets of beliefs about what the world is all about. And this, I've never in my life, I've lived on this earth a fair amount of time, I've never seen it like this, where there is so many different understandings of what is going on. I think in the past we were more on the same page, and now there's kind of that separation is occurring. So Jupiter is in retrograde in Scorpio right now. We may be seeing more of that fallout of these revelations, because when Jupiter is retrograding, it's going over old ground. So some of the scandals that we thought had been uncovered, we may find out a new layer to it. Remember that all of these things are not meant to disturb people. They're meant to wake them up. And when you wake up, you are free, because actually the people that are trying to deceive us are trying to keep us ensnared. And that is the truth of it. And we need to be free. So anyway, I think I'm going to leave it there. I hope that everyone has, wonderful experiences during this full moon. I think it can be a very mystical time because Scorpio is a water sign. So it heightens the psychic activity for sure. And so God bless everyone. Take care. Bye.